degree in agriculture, and it took him 12 years to finish that degree because he had to drop out of school periodically to work. But he got his degree, his passion was agriculture, and in the course of that education, he developed a relationship with a lady who became his wife the year he graduated. And between the two of them, they saw an advertisement, an opportunity to work in a far-off place called Alaska. Now, when I was a kid, there was an advertisement on TV that often used this particular theme. Once you've seen Alaska, every place else will look like Kansas. And they don't run that anymore, but it was actually a very catchy phrase, and we always wondered what they thought of it in Kansas. Well, he was in Kansas, and he'd never been really outside of the Midwest. He signed up for a job working for a man named C.C. Georgeson, who ran the Federal Agricultural Experiment Stations in Sitka, Alaska. And there were 7 experiment stations that were developed throughout the territory. A territory, mind you, that was very sparsely populated in 1907. He came to Alaska with his bride on the ship, and they landed on the beach in Kenai near the experiment station, which they could not see when they landed on the beach. And it was midnight, but it was the time of year, in fact, it's almost exactly 100 years ago next month when this happened, where they walked along the beach with their luggage. The ship had left, and they saw no one and saw no buildings, but had a general idea there seemed to be a path. And they met someone along the beach, a little boy who helped them lead to the experiment station, which was really just a couple buildings. Now, he was 31 years old, and in Kansas, frankly, he had not shown himself to be someone who had been particularly famous, someone who had been of any particular great accomplishment, but in the territory, what Frederick Jackson Turner had neglected to notice was that all frontiers don't go west. There was a northern frontier. And there was an opportunity, and it shows the role of opportunity in someone's life. For 31 years, he had basically been trying to survive. In Alaska, within 15 years, he was on the first board of regents for the new University of Alaska. He was in the Territorial Senate. He established the Federal Experiment Station at Matanuska, right near where our college is today. Incidentally, he chose that particular site in 1916 because he thought it was better suited for a dual purpose. The first obvious choice would have been in the flatter area near Palmer, which lends itself more naturally to agriculture because it lends itself to flat cropland. He picked the more hilly terrain by the experiment station because he saw the potential for what it could be. It was situated in an area where he thought there could be a school there someday. He didn't miss the mark by much. Our current campus is not far from where that sits. Now, here was someone who, amongst other things, also founded the Alaska State Fair in 1936. His name was M.D. Snodgrass. The building on our campus is named for his family, himself, and his descendants. And that particular story shows you what can happen when you give an average person an opportunity to do something with their life and they seize the opportunity. One of the great sad poems of history is, "Of all sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these, it might have been." And you don't ever want to face that when the road comes down at the end of your life, and you have already proved today that you have the ability to accomplish things, to do things with your life. And right now, although it is a culmination and a completion of a journey, it's really the beginning of something. And people might say, where did you go to school? Don't ever be ashamed or embarrassed about where you went to school. You're at the opening stages of something great. There are people graduating all over the east and midwestern part of this country in schools that are 200 and 300 years old, and they're just in a long chain of people that have followed each other. You are at the beginning of something, and while the back of your program will show this is technically a 49-year-old institution, it really is starting to be at the beginning of a different kind of institution right as we sit here tonight. 15 years ago, when I started teaching at this school, most of my students were middle-aged or older. They were taking courses for self-improvement, for just general interest. Now the composition of the student body is more traditional. And it's not inconceivable that 50 years from now, when you come back to this campus, and when we have a campus where we can have a celebration like this on campus, and the buildings will develop over time, and you walk through there with your children or your grandchildren, and you yourself have become people of accomplishment, we can say at that point, your name begins with you. Now, where did that come from? And what's it all about? Well, if you've taken my class in Western Civ 102, I always start the first lecture off about the Enlightenment. And there was a French philosopher named Voltaire. And he was always getting into people's faces. He was always making a nuisance of himself. But he always had a point in all the trouble that he created. And there was a higher-ranking nobleman at one point who approached him and said that I've had it with you, essentially. And I'm higher ranking than you. In an age where you were born to be what you were going to be for the rest of your life, where there was no social mobility, it was meant as a put-down. What is your name? My name is this. And Voltaire's answer was his classic double entendre. He said, my name begins with me, yours ends with you. Now, the nobleman had nowhere else to go. He faintly recognized he'd been insulted. All he had was his name, and Voltaire was basically saying two things. One, I'm going somewhere. My name isn't as much as yours technically, but at the end, I'll be more than you. Now, we live in a time and an era where you're not bound by the same limitations of class, and you have the opportunity to be like Mr. Snodgrass, to make something of yourself in a frontier where the opportunities await you. And so when someone comes up to you and you're at the beginning of your future and you can look into the future, you want to be able to look back when you visit the campus and say, I've done something. This school became something because of what you've done. This place, when Mr. Snodgrass first came here, in his own words, was something like Eden. There wasn't that many things that were here at that point. There were very few people. And certainly it's filled up with more people, but nothing by comparison to much of the rest of the world. You have great opportunities in front of you. You have a great chance to make something of yourselves. And your name begins with you, and the more that you do and accomplish, the prouder we can all be of what this school is going to be in the future. This is going to be a destination institution because of what your accomplishments are and will be in the future. You are some people that we are very proud of, and I'm happy to be here. It's been a great honor to be invited back to the school where I've taught, and I wish you the best. Your name begins with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tallis. I would now like to invite Corey Dunham to the stage to give the student address.
Welcome, everyone, family, friends, fellow graduates, Mat-Su College faculty, staff, and distinguished guests. Welcome to this 40th annual commencement ceremony of the Matanuska-Susitna College. We, the graduates of 2007, thank you for being here to help us celebrate this exciting moment in our lives. Fellow graduates, we did it! We made it here tonight. We're here because we took that big step of faith and we persevered through it all to complete a very difficult task. However, all of you, our family and friends, traveled that road with us. You were there for us and with us through the hard times of achieving our educational goals. We need to thank a few people who are here tonight that helped us along the way. Our bosses who let us leave work early so that we could attend class. And our co-workers who knew that we were under a lot of pressure from school, and they helped us, gave us a helping hand. How fun it was trying out our newfound knowledge on them, like assertiveness training, and changing a few settings on their computers and not letting them know how to change them back. We thank our professors, thank you so much, for each with their special abilities made us push ourselves and challenge ourselves to make it here tonight. Some of them even went that extra mile and was more than just a teacher. They were our friends. We thank our family members who made dinner and ate alone while we finished our assignments. I love you, Bill. Kids, no more homework for Mom. We thank our friends who understood when we couldn't get together because of final paper that was due, and who listened to us with our constant conversations about school. And most of all, we thank God. Thank you, God, for keeping us filled with the faith that this day would finally come. Some days it was only faith in Him that got me through. Psalms 18:29 says, "With your help, I can advance against a troop. With my God, I can scale a wall." And He put all of you, our family and friends, in our paths to help us fight those battles and scale those walls. Ecclesiastes 4:10 says, "If one falls down, his friend can help him up, but pity the man who falls and has no one to help him up." Thank you, God, and thank all of you, our friends and family, for helping us up along the way. It was not an easy feat to get here tonight. Torture is a word that comes to mind. Some days were so stressful. They were stressful enough that giving up was more than a passing thought. Feelings of brain overload, anxiety, and sleep deprivation were common occurrences. So why do we put ourselves through this? It's just a piece of paper, right? Each of us has our own reasons for starting this trip. Maybe it's the new job, or the pay raise, or the promotion. Maybe it was high school graduation and college was the next logical step. Then there are the life-altering changes like divorce, layoffs, and injury that required retraining. There are the people who have struggled to put food on the tables and they want more for their families. What about the person who has always wanted to be a nurse or a counselor? And don't forget the many military who have the chance now to go back to school after serving this great country. There are as many reasons as there are graduates. We all had our reasons for starting down this road, but for those of us graduating tonight, we have the same reasons for making it to completion. We had the drive, the perseverance, and the support of all of you. Now, where do we go from here? My eldest son recently told me that graduating is like the rung of a ladder, and I thought I had finally finished, but he helped me see that there's always more to do. For some of us, there are more classes and more exams. For most of us, though, we go out into this big world and make it a better place to live. We help people, we fix things, we prove ourselves worthy of this degree, and we become that role model by spreading the words, "You can do this too. You can do this." For those of you who are still working to get to graduation, we say to you, you're almost there. You can do it. For those of you that think that it's too hard and that you can't do it, we say, you can do it. You just need to start. So, we, the class of 2007, say to all of you who helped us, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We'll never forget what you've done for us. Graduates, we did it! Celebrate!